Hey everybody, today's Ben 10 action figure review is kind of a special one. It's special because it will conclude the original series Aliens. After this video, I'll be moving on to Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. So this video today will wrap up all the aliens that debuted in the original series, which is kind of in a way ironic because only one of these figurines I have here is actually the design used in the original series. The rest of these are designs that debuted in like Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. I know I touched on that before, that typically with my collection, my figurines, I like having the original design, whatever design the alien debuted with. That's usually the figurine I prefer to display in my collection. Well, some of those, I mean, obviously you can see here there are exceptions to that rule. Sometimes they didn't make the original debut design into an action figure. A great example, a couple of them here are Way Big and Articguana. They never made the original series designs of those aliens, so with my collection I just move on to the next design, which would be for them. Way Big is Alien Force. That design debuted in Alien Force, and then Articguana, that design technically debuted in Ultimate Alien. So yeah, there are exceptions to the rule. And also, speaking of that, I also said earlier in one of my other videos that I usually only display one of each of those designs. So if they did happen to make action figures of multiple designs for an alien, I only display one, the original one. Well, as you can see here with Upchuck, I do have both of them. I made an exception to that rule of mine just because Upchuck actually is two separate subspecies. Like, Ben can turn into either one of them he wants. There's the Perk Upchuck and the Merc Upchuck, and Ben, as we saw officially in Omniverse, he can choose which one of those subspecies of Upchuck that he wants to turn into. So because of that, I do display both versions of Upchuck in my display, because in a way it's kind of like two different aliens. I know it's not really, but in a way it's more so than certain aliens like Forearms, where each design was just that. It was just a different design. It wasn't another subspecies or anything like that. It was just an alternate design. With Upchuck, it's different. It is two different designs, but it's because it's two different subspecies. So just wanted to clarify some of that. These figurines are a bit different, I guess, than my typical figurines, because like I said, although these are all aliens that debuted in the original series, not even half of these right here are the designs of those debut designs. So let's get moving on here. As I said, I've got Perk Upchuck, Merc Upchuck, Way Big, and Articguana. So let's start out with Perk Upchuck. So here we have Perk Upchuck. Perk and Murk are just the titles of the subspecies of Upchuck species. So when I refer to Perk or Murk, that's what I mean. It's just different designs, the different subspecies. So this one here is Perk Upchuck. He's the original Upchuck that first debuted before we even knew there was a different alternate subspecies of Upchuck. This is the one that debuted. So his articulation, he really doesn't have much. The head does not turn at all. You can see it's just one solid piece. It's kind of more of a statue than an action figure in that area. Like, his whole torso and stomach and head and everything is just more of a statue. There's really not any articulation there. The arms do turn. It's a normal 360 turn on the arms, just at the shoulder. Nothing else going down, no elbow, no wrist, nothing, no movement there. Then the legs do move. There is articulation there. if I can get mine to move. There we go. You can hear that creaking. They're pretty stiff. But yeah, so the legs do bend forward. They really don't bend back. They do bend forward just a bit. I mean, Upchuck's a chubby little guy, so he's not probably super flexible. So the lack of articulation kind of makes sense. But yeah, so that's it for the legs. Nothing else there. Just at that hip joint, no knee or ankle joints. And then the tail does move. It turns around 360. So that offers a bit of extra articulation. Just right there where the tail attaches to the body, it swivels and goes around 360. And then that's it for articulation on this little guy. Not a whole lot, like I said. This like main body part's kind of more of a statue figurine, I suppose, but oh well. So moving on to paint and details. Looks really good. I like the little, I don't know what you want to call these little knobs on his head, little bumps. They're all sculpted and sticking out there. These lines on his face, they are just painted on. They're not sculpted. So that's, typically with these figurines, I do really good about sculpting those details in. Not a lot of it's just painted on. But with Upchuck, it is just painted on there. Same with the eyes. The eyes do not stand out at all. There's no three-dimensional factor to them. They're just painted on. The teeth and the mouth, however, are sculpted. So those teeth do raise there. The mouth is raised. So that's a bit of sculpting on the face. You can see he's got some shoulder blades back here, so they put in the sculpting detail for the shoulder blades, but not on the details on the actual face. Omnichick symbol looks good on his hand. The little fingers are sculpted well. All the paint looks really good. Nothing's out of line. I mean, any defect or scuff or anything you see on here is just from old age. It's got quite a bit of wear on his face right here, some paint peeling off, but as for the actual manufacturer paint job, everything looks really good. They got even these little thin white lines around his feet and toes. His tail comes into a little curly bit here. Typically I have that part facing down because it kind of helps more when standing him. Because if you have it facing the other way like this, it kind of tilts him a bit. Like you can see he's looking a bit, he's almost looking down a bit there. But if you have it laying flat, it makes him looking straight forward. So typically I have the tail posed that way, and I think it just looks and feels more natural like that. Guys, chubby little belly, you can see how that round bit there sticks out. Upchuck's just a cute alien. He's probably one of the cutest aliens that Ben can turn into. Especially this version, the Perk version. Merc version's a bit more ugly, but otherwise, yeah, this is a pretty good looking figurine. All the design on the clothing, everything's done really well. So let me get him up here with his counterpart, the Merc Upchuck. So here is Merc Upchuck standing next to Perk Upchuck, and scaling's great. I mean, it's what it should be. They're like identical in height, and that's how it is in the show. It looks really good. In my opinion, Merc Upchuck looks just a bit chubbier, but there's them side by side. You can see both their bellies sticking out there. So moving on to Merc Upchuck. Very, very similar to Perk Upchuck. I like identical articulation. Nothing in the head. Same statue-like body and torso. The arms move 360. Nothing else in the arms. No elbow or wrist joints. and then the legs have the same movement, just go up a bit, stubby little legs. They do maybe go back a bit more than Perk Upchuck did, but not a whole lot of movement there. So the legs mainly just move forward, and then again nothing else on the legs, no knee or ankle joints. And then he also has the same tail articulation, where again it just has that 360 swivel connecting to the body. This one's much more obvious, I think, in the way that it should be positioned. You want the spots on the top, otherwise it just doesn't look quite right. With the spots on the bottom pointing down like that, I think it's pretty obvious it's supposed to go that way. Especially again for the balance, if you want him standing normally, that's the correct way, and then you do this, and well, he doesn't even stand that way because it throws him off balance so much. There we go. But yeah, that's it for articulation. Like I said, identical to the other Upchuck. No difference there. Paint and detailing on this guy. Now, obviously, Perk Upchuck was clothed, and then Merc Upchuck is not. That's just, all the Alien Force and Ultimate aliens. I want to say all of them, 100% of them that debuted in any UAF shows, they were all naked. For whatever reason, they did away with the clothing for aliens in those series. And then they even followed suit with the aliens that had been from the original series that had clothes. Then if they debuted again in Alien Force Ultimate Alien, they took away their clothes. Upchuck is a good example of that. I'm not sure what those series had against clothed aliens, but if you haven't noticed that before, take a look at any of the aliens from those series, and they did not have clothing. Like I said, I think that applies to all of them. I can't think of any alien off the top of my head that had clothing in those series. But anyway, moving on from talking about naked aliens, the paint and detailing on this guy does look really good. Again, the black lines here are painted on, they're not sculpted. However, his eyes are sculpted. You can see those are raised in 3D. The mouth, again, is sculpted. He doesn't have any teeth showing on this one, but the knobs on the back of his head are all sculpted again. They look really good. You can really see his chubby belly here, and then the Omnitrix symbol in the center of that. And then he's got his fingers here look more like claws than they did on the other Upchuck. He's got toes sculpted real well, and you can see all the individual toenails are sculpted separately from the toes. All the spots look really good. I mean, they're painted well, and nothing is out of line or not painted. Personally, if I had to choose, I'd probably I think I like Perk Upchuck more. Most likely just due to nostalgia. It's the Upchuck that I mostly knew growing up and the one that first debuted. So typically I'd probably say I prefer that design more. But this one's also cute. So that's it for Merc Upchuck, and that concludes both the Upchucks there. So let's move on to Way Big. This is the Way Big figurine I have in my collection. As you can tell, he is pretty big. He's, I'd say, about twice as big as a normal figurine. They did make two versions of this Way Big. The one that I have is, it's kind of like in a way, it's kind of like a Transformer, not really a Transformer, but I'll show you. I'll get in that in a sec. But this is the one that I have, and then they made one that was actually more of an actual action figure, it was with the normal wave of action figures, and it was more in scale with your average action figure. He was probably about, you know, this tall, maybe, you know, like Swamp Fire height or something like that. He just wasn't big enough for me. I mean, it's way big. He should be huge and towering over these other figurines. So instead of that normal action figure that just the scale was not right in my opinion, I ended up going for this one. This one is not really an action figure per se, I guess. He's very statuesque. He doesn't, I think he has like 2 points of articulation just in the shoulders. But let me get into that. So here's the scaling with him. Obviously pretty good. Way Big's towering over Upchuck, so that's accurate, or as accurate as you're gonna get with action figures. But this Way Big, like I said, he's not your average action figure. So it was like a gimmick, I guess they made this toy with. So he actually condenses, so you can push his arms in, and you can push his neck in and push his head crest down, and then his legs, you can see back here, they're kind of hollow. It's because they can fold in on themselves. So this is the leg normal. You pull out and it has that little piece here that's on a hinge, and then it folds up onto itself. And you do that with both sides. And then basically you have a dwarf Way Big. It looks really goofy, really funny. But I don't know what they were going for with this toy. If they were trying to, you know, kind of play on the Transformer thing like I said, or if it was more of a like Ben transforming into Way Big, so he goes from like small to big. And I don't know. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of this whole folding up thing was. But he does, I mean, he stands like that, like a normal figurine. You can see him from the back there. But I'm not sure what they were thinking exactly, but I am glad that they did make him, because like I said, the normal Way Big action figure they made that came out in the same wave as all the other action figures was just too small. I mean, he's just, they didn't even make him like a little bit bigger. He's just like I said, maybe the height of Swamp Fire, who is a pretty average height alien. So I'm really glad they did make this figurine, because it can allow Way Big to actually be Way Big in your display. So yeah, folding him back out, you pull the arms down, pull the head back up. It all kind of snaps and clicks into place as you pull it. Pull his head crest back out, and then pull his legs down. And then there you go, you have the full Way Big again. As for articulation on this guy, like I mentioned, he is very stiff, not much going on. The only thing he has is this 360 in his shoulders, and then he does have some wrist movement. Goes around 360 for both of the wrists, and then that's it. There's nothing in the head, nothing else, no more arm articulation, nothing, and then nothing in the legs, unless you want to maybe count that. I don't know, but otherwise he's a very stiff figurine, and for my purposes I'm totally fine with that. I just use him to display. I don't play with him, I don't pose with him, I just display him. So for my purposes that's great and that's fine. But you know, that could matter to some people if you like to build your displays with action poses. This guy might not be the best for that, but at the same time, if you want a more accurate scaling in your display, then definitely go for this guy. I know he is pretty pricey secondhand, like usually at least $100, but I bought him a long time ago. I know I didn't pay that much for him. I just know nowadays he can be pretty pricey. So I don't have that other way big action figure, the smaller one. I don't even have it. I never even bothered buying it because I just, like I said, I had no interest in a small little way big. So this is the one that I've always displayed with my action figures. He's very big. I mean, you can see, like, he's maybe even bigger than my hand. So he's much larger than the typical Ben 10 action figures. So he does make for a great way big option for your collection. And like I touched on before in this video, he's obviously not the original series design. I typically do like to have the debut design for each alien in my collection, but they didn't always make the debut design. So this is the Alien Force debut design. And then, like usual, I'll do the paint and detailing. Everything on this guy looks great, like really good. I mean, I don't know if it's because they had a bigger figurine to work with, so like all the paint and detailing was done a little better, but I mean everything on here is so crisp and clean and in line. You can see his lips are actually sculpted there. His eyes are just painted on, but they are done very well. There's the crest on his head. This thing it's loose. It's prone to falling down. But that looks nice. They got these like lines on his chest sculpted, and all the paint dealing with the red, or the paint detailing with the red. Here's a close-up on that back part. You can see that hinge there. He's very light. I mean, for as big as he is, he's probably even lighter than a normal figurine from these waves. He is very light. I don't know if he's maybe hollow on the inside, or maybe it's because this is hollow here, but he is very, very light for being such a big figurine. He's lighter than you'd probably expect. So that is way big, and then the next alien I will be talking about is Articguana. So here's Articguana next to way big. Again, scaling is about as good as you're going to get with action figures, especially with this version of way big. If it was a normal version of way big, he'd probably be about this tall compared to Articguana, which would just look kind of ridiculous. So that looks pretty good. Now Articguana, I in my display I include him with the original series lineup, just because that's when we first saw him. Even though it was with Ben 10,000, it wasn't technically the 10-year-old Ben that debuted Articguana, it was Ben 10,000 that debuted him. But just for display purposes and kind of like being technical with the order of appearance, because I do usually like to display my figurines in order of appearance. So just kind of being technical with that, I do display Articguana with the original series aliens. And even though this isn't the original series Articguana design, the major difference, and maybe even really the only difference, is the Omnitrix symbol. Just like all the UAF aliens, the Omnitrix symbol was in the center of the chest. In the original series, it was right here on his hand. But that's about the only major difference I can think of between the two. So, articulation on this guy, really not bad at all. Like, considering he's not bipedal, he's he's on all fours. He's kind of a weird looking alien. The articulation for this guy is not bad. Nothing in the head, obviously. This is one solid piece here, but he does have the shoulder swivel, goes all the way around. kind of gets these legs back here get in the way, but it does go all the way around. And then he actually has the elbow joint, which like most of the normal figurines that actually stand on two legs don't even have. So that's kind of cool that he does have that elbow joint. Nothing else there, nothing in the wrists. And then the legs go back. They go back that far. They don't go quite all the way around, and they don't go up a whole lot. You can see it goes up just a little bit there. And then he has the knee joint, which again we don't really see a whole lot of in these other figurines. So it's he's definitely got some decent articulation. And then one extra little bit that he does have is his jaw can go up and down. I'm not sure why they gave that to him. I guess I mean, I'm not complaining, but they kind of took an extra step there and did that, and sometimes that's surprising. But maybe it's because his ability, his ice powers come from his mouth, like he breathes the ice and shoots the ice beams from his mouth. So if I had to guess, that's probably why they gave that to him. So if you want to pose him with his mouth like he's shooting ice, then you can do so. The inside of the mouth looks pretty good. But he's got this little lever right here, so you can like use that to pull down his jaw. Obviously he doesn't have that in the show, but for the sake of the toy they added that. It goes down pretty far. Like, that opens really wide, like maybe more than the other toys we've seen this with, because we saw this jaw articulation with Wild Mutt and Rip Jaws, and I think Articguana might have the widest mouth. That goes way down, like all the way down. I usually pose them with it closed, but that's a nice little touch of articulation there. And then that's it for the articulation on this guy. Paint and detailing looks great. So this figurine actually came out with the Ultimate Alien figurine, so aliens like Wrath and Nanomech. He was actually in that wave, so we didn't get an Articguana figurine for a while, but I'm glad they made him. Kind of an obscure alien to make, so it's kind of a surprise that they even made this figurine at all, but I'm glad they did. He's a cool alien. You can see they sculpted all these little, I don't know if you want to call them whiskers on his face, or scales, probably more accurate. They sculpted the scales. They sculpted all the lip lines. You can see all those lines on his lips. That's just on the upper lip. But they did give him teeth on both top and bottom. Not much sculpting going on in the mouth. He's got some lines on the roof of his mouth. No tongue or anything. He's got the lines down there too, but no tongue. The eyes are sculpted and raised. These gill lines are just painted on. Those fingers, you can just make out the little claws there that he has sculpted. He's got some stubby little feet, like really not any feet at all, or toes or anything. They just kind of, they're a continuation of his legs, and they're pretty stubby. Here's his back crests, or his fins, or whatever you want to call them. So everything on this guy looks really good, and like I said, he's got some fairly impressive articulation. So that concludes Articguana. Let me get everybody back up here. That is it for this week's video, and that is also it for all the original series aliens. Unfortunately, they never made a couple of aliens from the original series. They never made Eye Guy. They never made Ditto, and if you want to include any of the Ben 10,000 aliens from the original series, they never did make Spitter, and they never did make Buzzshock. I really wish they would have made Eye and Ditto at least. I mean, they're original series aliens, and they're cool ones at that, and I think they deserve it, but unfortunately they never did make them. So that does conclude the figurines for the original series. Like I said, next I'll be moving on to Alien Force. So my next video will be Alien Force Ben, which also kind of doubles as Ultimate Alien Ben, Swampfire, Echo Echo, and Humongosaur. So do keep an eye out for that video. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you later.